Hi, I'm Diane Keys, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is a lifelong innovator, entrepreneur, author, researcher, facilitator, speaker, educator, a business and academic consultant, and of course, a social and cultural innovator with a PhD in epidemiology. No other than Miss Nova Israel. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Nova, and can you please introduce yourself?
Many things. I started my career as a dietitian, actually, as a clinical dietitian, and I worked with athletes and eating disorders for many years, and then I immigrated to Canada about 23 years ago now. To the most beautiful, wonderful country in the world, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Um, and here I started something new. I've decided that I've had enough with my previous profession. Even though I got licensed here and it was all good, I felt like there are other things that I want to do with my life. And so I got engaged with everything that has to do with social justice and social inclusion. And so for the next 17 years, what I did was I worked on everything that had to do with integrating immigrants like myself into the Canadian labor market, into the Canadian life, so that when you come to a new country, as quickly as possible, you build a sense of home, because that's really difficult. And so I developed and managed bridging programs for internationally educated professionals in colleges and universities. Sorry. I worked with government agencies and fairness commissioners to create fair processes where people who came with all these gifts and talents will be able to work here in their profession. But then about 5 years ago, um, I had a higher calling, if you will, uh, with after a lifetime of observing life and observing the world and how it operates. And after doing a lot of research, as you said, I have a PhD in epidemiology, which actually trains you to look at reality from both a qualitative and a quantitative perspective, meaning to look at patterns, right? And that's my passion. I see patterns and connect things that normally wouldn't seem as if they are connected, but they are. And so from that lifetime of being an immigrant myself, actually twice, and then and seeing the beautiful diversity of this world and working with so many cultures, but also working in different areas, I have seen this pattern emerge. And once I saw that pattern, I created it into a model, a social model, so that it makes sense to any of us. So it's a simple model, it's very intuitive, and it's very revealing of something that all of us experience on every level of our lives. Most of us don't see it. And when we don't see it, we are not aware of how it controls our lives. And so once this pattern, this model emerged in my mind, I could no longer do anything else but sit and write this book. So this book, it has been 5 years in the making, if you believe it. It's a
5
long time.
years. So, Miss
Yes.
Nova, can you show us the pattern that you wrote in your latest book Controlled.
Yes. So the book is called CONEtrolled, which is like the word cone, like an ice cream cone or a traffic cone. It's a play on words because the model that I've developed is shaped as a cone. And it is controlling our lives. Therefore, control. And the way that this model works is it has 6 layers, if you like, right? So the very, very basic layer is what I called core certainties. Now, we usually use the word beliefs. What are your beliefs? Daniel, what do you believe in, right? The things that you see that are your reality. But belief is a very weak word in my mind because one day we can believe one thing, another way we can believe another thing. So I renamed it to be core certainties, and it comes from the word certain. These are the things that we are so certain about that we never question them. Yeah? We are certain that our world is a sphere, right? Earth is a sphere, not flat. Sorry, flat earthers. Um, this is our core certainty. We don't wake up every morning and say, let me see if I need to prove that the world is round and not flat, right? These are the things that are so deeply embedded in us that we never question. But it's beyond the shape of the earth. These are also the things that we are certain about, what we call reality, right? So we can be certain that about a certain religion, and there's no questioning it. Like, this is our reality. We can be certain about how a family should look like. We can be certain about what government should be doing or not. We can be certain about the laws of our land, or we can be certain about our educational system. So there are a lot of things that are our core certainties that are like the roots in the soil. If you would imagine us as a tree, these are the roots in the soil that we don't see. But these roots feed everything that we are and everything that we see around us. This is how we interpret the world. This is how we see reality. Okay? So we start with that hidden layer of our core certainties, and each of us has different ones. But because we are so certain about them, people who have different core certainties than our own, we consider them ridiculous or stupid or evil, right? Depending on what your core certainties taught you to think about those other people that have other beliefs and core certainties. So that's one problem that we're living with, is our core certainties that aren't inclusive, that are not open-minded. That's why they are certainties.
Did you face any significant challenges when you're writing Control?
Oh, oh my God, huge challenges. So do you mind if I just finish
Oh,
describing the
yes,
model
go
and then
ahead. Go ahead.
I'll tell you about the challenges. Then it will make sense, okay? So the second layer is problems. We all have problems, right? These can be big problems, small problems. I have a headache, it's a problem. Or is it? I have, I need to make money to survive. I need a house. Right? We all have different types of problems, and problems can be big or small, but actually we see our problems based on what we need. My big problem may be insignificant to you, right? So problems are individual, and these problems come from our core certainties. So for example, if your core certainty is a certain religion that tells you that certain things are a sin, but you really want to do them, that's a problem, right? If I don't have that religion and I'm doing these things, it's not a problem for me, right? So problems are individual, they are fed by our core certainties. And the problem with problems is that sometimes it's not a real problem. It's someone who wants us to have that problem because they have a solution to sell us, right? And so they create that problem for us. And then they say, oh, Lucky you, I just have the solution for you, right? You can buy it, you can rent it, you can believe in what I'm saying. So problems is the next level. When we have a problem, we have a need. That's the third layer. And it becomes narrower. That's why it becomes a cone eventually. The need is, well, I need my problem to go away, right? But also the needs can be manufactured. They're not really always our needs. Sometimes they are just symptoms and we don't realize it. And so we define them wrong. The next one is solution. Once we know what our problem is, what our need is, and we have our core certainties that tell us these kinds of solutions are okay, those kinds of solutions are not okay, we find solutions to our problems. But usually we don't like many solutions. We want one that will solve all our problems, right? So it keeps narrowing down. Give the solution enough time, it becomes a system, right? And a system is like, okay, we know what to do. We will train people to deliver this solution. We have delivery systems. We have expertise. We have standards. Oh, you want to do this solution? There are standards to it. And so it narrows still. People who come with new solutions are like, well, it's not ours. No, thank you. Right? So it becomes narrower in terms of what we see, what we get, and our freedoms. And the very, very final stage of this cone is the very tip, is the top, which locks the whole formation, and that's dogma. Now, dogma is the undeniable, unquestionable. Dogma is when you no longer can question the solution or the system. You're not allowed, because then you become a heretic, a sinner of the solution. If you speak about something against that solution or that system, you are a traitor. You are being silenced, and you are expected to obey. Now, and that's why it's a cone. Now, the reason it's a cone and not a triangle is because it contains us. It contains those that the cone controls. Okay, so it's three-dimensional. To your question of the difficulties in writing it. So first of all, this model came to me, as I said, through many years of observation. But when you start writing something and trying to make sense of it to other people, you really need to get your thoughts in order. And so that's one problem, is how do I explain something in a way that doesn't sound academic? Because that's not my intention. It's not an academic research. But still, it needs to have enough evidence and be grounded in different perspectives of science, psychology, sociology, etc. So there's a lot of research involved. But beyond the research and putting it in words that anyone can understand, what was the most difficult for me was emotionally dealing with seeing all these oppressive cones everywhere. Because, and that's the beauty of this model, is that once you understand it and once you see a cone, you can no longer unsee it. This becomes now these become your new glasses, where you look at systems and you ask yourself these basic questions. Is it silencing me? Do I have full freedom to ask questions? How does it harm me? How does it benefit me? Who am I not allowed to criticize? Whom does it tell me to hate or to dismiss or discredit, right? All of these questions are sort of red flags that tell you there's a cone here, and a cone is never a good thing because it takes us away from us, right? It controls us, it silences us, it abuses us. And once I start seeing it everywhere, it became emotionally difficult. And for a long time, I became very angry. I became angry with this world, you know? because you see it everywhere. You see how it works, and everything is that pattern, from a relationship, an abusive relationship. So let's say a relationship with a narcissistic abuser, to communities that are very oppressive and silencing, to workplaces, to big systems like our economy and educational system and legal systems and governance and worldwide systems. Not that there aren't other things that are better, there are, but they are the ones who are silenced, that we don't see. We only see the cones because the cones are loud and they are powerful, and they want us to believe that that's the only thing there is. That's just life. And that's a lie. But because that's all we see, it made me so emotionally just hurting. But then, luckily, I went through all this writing and describing and everything, and then I got to the last two chapters, which is, how do we get out of it? And there are ways, and other ways of being do exist. This is not our only reality. This is simply the only reality we are shown. Like in a puppet show, all you see is the puppets dancing, and we are one of the puppets. But outside of that puppet theater, there is life. There are other ways of living. And that's when I was like, okay, I can breathe now and keep writing the good things, how we can stop this, how there are other ways. So that was sort of my writing journey and the difficulties, I would say.
Very well said. So, but before we go on, I want to shout out our listeners from where? From Mexico. Thank you so much, Mexico, Thailand, New Zealand, Tanzania, Moldova, United Kingdom, Poland, and Norway. Thank you so much for my 30 days top ranking for the month of July. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers, authors all over the world, like Miss Nava Israel. Do you draw any personal experiences when crafting controlled?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, as I said, each and every one of us experiences these cones on every level of our lives. And when I start seeing it, I've realized just how much I have experienced it throughout my life. For example, as I said, my first career was, I was a clinical dietitian. And as a health professional, it is based on modern medicine, right? Now, as I started practicing, I've realized just how limited this profession is and how limiting it is in terms of what you're, not just what you can do, because that's okay. Every profession has limits to what you can do with it, and that's okay because that protects the clients or the patients from unprofessional treatment, right? But the limitations were within the profession as well, because it was based on modern medicine. So anything that was more natural, anything that was more holistic was like, no, 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 that's just the primitives, they're not, this is so primitive. There is no evidence for that. You can't try this herb because there's not enough medical research on it. Yes, but these people used it for thousands of years to heal that problem. Why can't we try it? No, no, no. We only do things that are within modern medicine. And that was sort of my first encounter as a very young woman with this dogmatic approach to life, right? I also served in the military as a young woman, and I've seen this dogmatism in the military. Now you expect oppression in the military because that's how it's built, right? But even within that system, there could have been more bigger thinking, but there isn't, because the walls close on you, because that's how dogma works. It silences you. It silences creativity. And then even as an individual, I have seen abusive relationships, thankfully not my own, but friends that I've known who were married to narcissistic partners and didn't even know that they were abused. They weren't aware of the dynamics that is happening between them and their abusive partner, and how their abusive partner is using all the tools of the code, which is shaming and guilting and gaslighting and silencing and making you feel like you're the problem and you're the one who's crazy if you go against them, right? So it's exactly the same patterns as used by bigger systems. So throughout my life, I have seen it, and so it made perfect sense once all the 1,000 pieces fell into place. And as I said, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It's there everywhere.
Yes, there's a patterns, as Miss Nava said. So, what do you hope readers will take away from your book after they finish reading it?
Thank you, Daniel. That's a wonderful question. Here's what I hope. I hope for two things. One, I hope that people will open their eyes. I hope that this book is awakening. And I think we are now, as we say, we are in the age of Aquarius. We are now at the age of awakening. Even though when we look around us, the world is a mess, right? I think we can all agree that the world looks like it's a big mess. And it's this mess that makes us hopeless. But that's just the puppet theater, right? That's a theater, what we're seeing. And that's what the people who control our lives want us to see. They want us to be hopeless. They want us to be helpless. They want us to feel that this is the only way to go. That's just life. But that is bullshit, pardon me. It is not what life should look like. And there are better ways. So these are the two things I want my readers to understand. One is to start seeing all the cones around them. Everyone who is silencing them, everyone who is oppressing, abusing, hurting, making them feel small and not enough and needing to earn their right to live. These are all artificial structures that are there to control us. So one is I want people to awake to that and see and recognize the cones in their lives who control them. The second thing, because once you see it, as I said, problem writing, you get really despaired. It's so hurtful. It is so enraging. But there are other ways of living, and they already exist. And that's why I hope that everyone gets through my book to the last two chapters that are full of hope and guidance on how you get out of cones, how you let go of them, and where do you find better ways of being. And I guess maybe the third thing, I said two, but there's a third thing, which is when we leave a cone, when we leave an oppressive system, be it an abusive partner, an abusive family, a controlling community, or whatever our cones are, many times we leave these with a heavy weight of anger and vengeance, right? We're angry. We suddenly realize that we've been abused. We suddenly realize what's been done to us, how we've been silenced, how we've been dehumanized. And when we realize that, we can live with a lot of anger. And the thing is, when we live with all that anger and we don't treat it, and we don't acknowledge it, and we don't go through it until we heal, we take all that anger and we build the next cone in line. And that's the problem with cones. Cones reincarnate. that we recreate them, because we leave one with anger, and when we infuse that anger into our next solution, we just build the next oppressive system. So I would love my readers to understand that. And when they leave cones, I would love them to be able to give themselves the time and the opportunity to heal and to find peace, and then find other solutions from a place of peace and from a place of love and inclusion, and knowing that we as humanity are one. There's no us and them. That's just artificial divide and conquer. So that's what I hope for my readers, is to find that new life for themselves, either on a small scale, like getting away from an abusive partner, or on a big scale, like not buying into the lies of many of our controlling systems.
Yes, of course. Hope, 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 people. And because of that, I'm gonna give you a cheering squad, Miss Nova Israel. Thank you for sharing your talents to the world. Thank you for your controlled.
Thank you,
So,
Daniel, for
y-
allowing me to this
y-
platform to speak about it.
you're welcome. But before we go on, Miss Nova, I want to please do purchase one of my audiobooks. They're one of the bestsellers on Audible. Stand Tall, Stand Together, Breaking the Chains of Bullying. And of course, my Book 101 Review, Volume 3. These are my 100 episodes of my first season. They are the products of my first season's 100 episodes. Volume 3 suggestions, and of course, My Earth Fever, The Unraveling Climate and Our Race to Restore Balance, my climate change book, my Book 101 Review, Volume 2 selected. Again, this is our my 100 episodes of my first season of Book 101 Review, and Volume 1, highly recommended. And of course, my self-help book, Threads of Existence, weaving the tapestry of life, and Life is Too Short, a journey of discovery, fulfillment, and joy. Available on Audible. People, please purchase them and enjoy. Listen to them. So, Miss Nova, how do you see controlled fitting into a broader literary landscape or cultural conventions?
Mhm. First of all, I want to applaud you for all that you have already done, of the books that you have written, all your audibles there. I think that you can see how well our topics are aligned, in terms of, building a better future for each and every one of us and for the world. And that's why I said I feel we are in this age of Aquarius, where we are all waking up, and we know that there is something better for us out there. So this I find this so delightful, to sort of find, I call it find my tribe, right? Find the people who are like-minded, who believe in a better world and a better future. Um, how how do I see this book sort of finding its place? I think so. This book is the foundational book of my model, and I did my best to write it in a very uh, reader friendly language. So it's not a textbook, it's not an academic book. I think that anyone who has at least a basic education will be able to read and enjoy it. Having said that, there are other things that I'm working on now, if that's okay, based on this book. If I can speak to them shortly. So, as I said, this is the foundational book, but based on this model, I've also developed tools which your listeners, your audience, can access on my website for free. One tool that is free, and then the others I'm still working on, is self assessment of your vulnerability to codes or to manipulative systems. Because each of us is vulnerable at a different level to manipulators. But some of us are more vulnerable just based on some of our core certainties and even our personality. And so if people go to my website, they can download it for free. It's a list of questions that you sort of decide where you are on these scales, and then it gives you the number of your vulnerability. But beyond the number, it's a good exploration of what are those things that make us more vulnerable to people who manipulate us. And once you realize what that vulnerability is, you can start working on yourself, and you can start asking the question, oh my goodness, who is exploiting me based on this? Who's pushing my buttons, these sensitive buttons, to control me, to silence me, to make me do what they want, not what I want, right? So this is one tool that um, people can access even without reading my book. That's okay. I want to spread this as much as possible to whoever needs. So now I'm also working on a more comprehensive, a workbook of self-diagnostic, which will tell you not only what your vulnerabilities are, but also help guide you through a process of identifying exactly who are the cones that control your life, those that currently are invisible to you. So that will be a workbook. Hopefully within 2 months, I will release it, a workbook of self-diagnostic. And then there will be another book, which is relationship diagnostic, based on the same principle. But you are in a relationship and you want to know the quality of your relationship, then you can do both partners can do their self-diagnostic. And then there will be a family self-diagnostic. And I already have an organizational diagnostic, and I've piloted it with an organization that basically measures how much of a cone is this system, is this organization. Is it an oppressive organization? Is it toxic? Is it hyper controlling? And guiding organizations on how you can do better, on how you can heal your organizational culture not to become a cone. But my most exciting thing that I'm working on, and back to your question of where does it fit in, is that I really want this book, or the principles of this book, to be accessible to absolutely everyone, including young people, including people who don't have higher education, really anyone. So what I'm doing is I'm developing a very short version of this book. I call it Controlled on the Go, and it will be illustrated, and it will be very short on text, but sort of all the big principles with illustrations, so that even a 14-year-old can read it and understand, because our future is in the hands of the younger people. Obviously, we are still here. We are still doing things, hopefully the right way. But really, 20, 30 years from now, I'm not the one who's going to be the thought leader. It's going to be the Gen Zs, right? The millennials
Fancy.
and the Gen Zs and the next gen, whatever, alphas. Um, and it's so important that they don't make our mistakes. Because here's the thing, Gen Zs think, and we were the same, eh? Let's be honest. When we were young, we were like, these old stupid people, they don't know what they're doing. They're so outdated. We know how to do things right. We will be the revolutionaries of the new world. And look at us now, right? So
Yes.
every generation had that illusion. And it's because we didn't understand how the cone works. And we kept erecting the next cone in line and the next cone in line. So I'm hoping that this illustrated short version will be available to younger people who will then not repeat the same mistakes that 50 generations repeated, and do better for themselves, for the world, and really, because I'm already seeing them starting to make the same mistakes. Yeah, like
Yes.
cancel culture. It's a hateful thing that came from a very good intention, which is how calls are begin. So that's where in the field of books, I'm hoping to address different needs, and different people will find a different version of my book helpful to them.
Thank you, Miss Nava Israel, for sharing your talents to the world. And because of that, can you please invite our listeners to support Controlled?
Yes, please, please. So you are invited to visit my website. It's an easy domain. It's navainc.ca. So navainc.ca. And you can read more about the book there. You can read more about me, and you can download that free self-assessment, and follow me on my next releases. Yeah, if you're interested of connecting with me, you can connect with me through my website. I'm not a snob. I would love to build a community of like-minded people who wish to share thoughts and ideas. So yeah, this is my spiel. This is my pitch.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Nova Israel because if you support her, more books to come. So, Miss
Yeah.
Nova, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and good luck with your initiatives as well. It's really wonderful what you're doing.
Thank you so much. So, more to come, people. See you soon.